out of Sanaa, the capital, which is held by the Houthis, who back the former president. Does it make you think that there is genuine support for those who are trying to take on the Saudi-led coalition and, by extension, the current president, or was this a manufactured rally up there?
I think you'll find that it's a mixture of both, and it's an interesting point that you make when you talk about opposition to the Saudi coalition rather than support for Ali Abdullah Saleh or for the Houthis. And it's a really important distinction in that for people in the northwest of Yemen, from the highlands, their experience of the war has primarily been the airstrikes. There has not been fighting in Sanaa, there has not been fighting in a lot of the highlands. So the only part of the war that they've seen so far has really been this very intensive aerial bombing campaign. So their experience is one of the Saudis attacking Yemen, whereas in reality it's a much bigger and much more complex conflict. But many people in the north, while they might not like the Houthis or they might not like Saleh, dislike the Saudis even more and will support anyone who resists attempts to take the capital.
Remember when Saleh was forced out of the country when he was badly injured in an assassination attempt when he was still president a couple of years ago? It might surprise a lot of people to see him standing there addressing the crowds, whether they love him or are ambivalent to him. But I'm wondering about how safe he is there, and therefore whether, in fact, this part of the country and further north are basically going to have to stay in the hands of the Houthis no matter what.
Well, he is the ultimate survivor of the Arab Spring. He is the comeback kid. He was pushed out in 2011, and he's managed to really remove many of his rivals from the north of the country. He's made an attempt at backing the Houthis in an attempt to militarily take the entire country by force. Having been counted out on any number of occasions, he's really a brilliant schemer. And I don't mean that as a compliment, unfortunately. And there is this question of what happens next. How far will he take this? The Houthis and Saleh's loyalists have lost a lot of the territory in areas where people resisted them at the beginning of the war, but they're still pretty much in control of the areas they controlled before the Saudi campaign began. And the next big question is, will the coalition, by backing Yemeni forces, try and take Sanaa, and will they try and take Saleh out? And if they do, we can expect a great deal more bloodshed before the war is over.
See, the thing is, I mean, we paint this sometimes, or if you want to take it at its simplest form, this is Houthi rebels against the Saudi-led coalition, whereas in actual fact you have that one fight there, then you have Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula allowing the security vacuum to let it increase its presence mostly in the south and east. And then I was reporting just then about ISIL saying it was behind suicide bombings in Tais, in Aden, I beg your pardon. The whole country is a terrible mess.
Yeah, absolutely. What the war has done, really, and maybe it's more correct to call it wars than war, because this is one central group, one central regime, if you like, which is this odd mishmash of the Houthis and Saleh, fighting various different groups in different parts of the country. In the south, they fought southern separatists. In Taiz, they fought local militias and Sunni Islamist militias. In the north, they've been fighting tribes. They've been fighting Sunni Islamists and a faction of the military that broke away from the Saleh regime in 2011. And each of these groups has its own agenda, its own aims, and they don't really cross over that much. They're united only in their opposition to the Houthis and to Saleh. And as you say, the security vacuum that we've seen just ripple across the country, and security wasn't great before the war began, has created huge space for Al-Qaeda, who control large chunks of territory in the southeast. They control an entire city, Mukalla. That's become their base. And we're seeing a quite aggressive ISIS franchise trying to make its mark. So, yes, there's a lot going on. And even if this one war, if the Saudi-led campaign can be ended, there's a lot of trouble ahead.
You see, Peter, what I wanted to ask you is, you talk about all the different battles that are going on, the wars within wars, and of course, Millions of people need help there. We've seen pictures of aid trucks trying to get through or not being allowed to get through there at all. I'm wondering that when Ali Abdullah Saleh says, listen, I want to talk directly to the Saudis, is there any realistic prospect of this happening? Or is he simply grandstanding?
Well, what we've seen over the past month is that the Houthis have entered into direct talks with the Saudis, but the Saudis haven't been talking to Saleh, and that apparently has upset him a great deal. But at the same time, we've seen the UN envoy to Yemen announcing that on the 18th of April there will be peace talks between Saleh's political party, the GPC, the Houthis, and the Hadi government in Riyadh, which basically exists as an umbrella for the various forces that the Saudis are working with in Yemen. And what Saleh is saying is, we're going to ignore this government, we're going to ignore the President Abdurrabbu Mansur Hadi, who's been pushed out, and we want to talk directly with the Saudis. But he's also trying to create position for himself and his faction, so there are divisions even between the Houthis and the Saleh guys.
Peter, we're going to have to leave it there. That's Peter Salisbury talking to us, Yemen analyst and journalist. Peter Salisbury in New York. Thanks very much indeed for joining us.